Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrain, and in today's video I want to talk a bit about Assassination on BFA. Now, I've made so many videos on Outlaw when it comes to PvP, BFA, all the good things there is, duels, as well as I made a couple of videos on Subtlety. That's a great spec, it feels awesome to play, and I probably will make a video about choosing between Assassination, Subtlety, and Outlaw, what's new, what's different, what is there to look for, since the PTR is coming out with a pre-patch. They don't have the ability for you to copy a character over there, but as soon as they do, I'll make a video even how to get into it and what to look for when it comes to exploring your class on the PTR. Anyway, in this video I do want to talk and highlight a bit about Assassination. Now, I haven't really had the time to play that much Assass, let alone really get a lot of quality footage on the beta, because ever since Blizzard added the ability for us to copy our characters over to the beta, to copy our Legion characters with our legendaries, with our trinkets, which are a lot of them overpowered, 2-piece bonuses, 4-piece set bonuses, which all work in PvP. The PvP scene has been a little bit hectic, very bursty, and very item heavy. It's not a lot of classes going in and hitting hard, it's usually a lot of classes having overpowered trinkets and then taking off half of their gear, and for whatever reason, taking off gear makes you deal more damage to other players. So that's something that Blizzard also needs to fix whenever they get the chance. But I want to showcase you guys a little bit of the old school footage of Assassination, talk a little bit about how the spec feels to play on beta, because I feel I just haven't given Assassination nearly that much of a spotlight, and I know a lot of people enjoy Assassination, so they're wondering what's new, how does it feel, how are the talents, what do you bring to PvP, and all, I guess everything that, what is Assassination going to be like in BFA? Is it good? Is it bad? Should I play it? Should I care? Should I learn? Or should I just not? If you're somebody who never played Assassination Rogue or Rogue in general, I always thought Assassination Rogue is the best spec because it's really straightforward, especially for new players. I don't want to say it's an easy spec because I don't think none of the 3 specs of Rogues are all that easy. I feel like there's other classes and specs that are miles easier than Rogues, but Assassinations are fairly good to start with because it's straightforward. The damage you output, the debuffs that you apply, like the bleeds on the enemy and the general playstyle, is pretty easy to pick up compared to the Subtlety, burst, and really just line up a bunch of procs, and then the Outlaw, roll the bones mechanic, high burst, low sustain type of damage, higher amount of CC. So Assassination has always been that spec with a great sustain, great burst, and plenty enough of rogue utility in order to stay competitive against other rogues, and usually putting itself ahead, especially at the early stages of Legion. And the spec continues to do more or less that into BFA. Now, the spec is getting so many good talents in order to make it play just a little bit better than it did in the past. As in, the spec has so many good talents that allow you to customize the situation that you want to walk into, and I feel like a lot of these talents are going to be great for PvP. We have opportunity to buff our silence, something Assassination Rogues have always had, but the silence has been down to like 3 seconds, so it's something you could maybe get a vanished 3-second silence off at one point or another. That silence is getting upgraded to 6 seconds if you are in PvP, and if you go for a talent Iron Wire, where you can silence enemies a lot longer. I'm very excited about how people will be able to use and abuse this talent. I'm very happy that there's like a very caster or anti-caster type of setup for Assassination, because I mean, you're walking around with all your poisons and your corrodes and your bleeds, and if you want to be somebody who wants to chase after a mage with maybe mind numb and poison, getting a road to silence the enemy really makes you feel like an assassin. You really get to prepare for the target you're trying to attack. Overall, the spec feels pretty good, even though we lost the artifact weapon. What I liked about the artifact weapon, and I was kind of hoping it would come back for BFA, but I only found this out recently since I'm not an Assassination main. The way you would use the artifact weapon is you would first hit it, and then you would combo Toxic Blade during the very last 9 seconds of your artifact weapon, and hopefully getting in Venom somewhere in between. As every time you apply a poison, it makes the dot for your artifact weapon stronger and stronger, and Toxic Blade amplifies that effect, especially during the last 9 seconds. This is something I only recently found out. I've been using it in PvP as well as PvE in order to see if I can increase my damage, and I saw some great results. So that combo is getting lost into BFA, and I thought it was a kind of a fun combo. It was a pretty easy one to execute. You just had to have the right timing for Toxic Blade, making sure you're not global cooldown out during your rotation, but overall it feels pretty good to play without it. I feel like our talents offer us enough of a playstyle of what we want to have. Dispatch is back as a talent, even though it's going to be called Blindside, so I'll call it Blindside from here on out. Having Blindside as an execute back into Assassination really makes you feel like it missed a Pandaria again, and it's just awesome overall to play. DFA being an honor talent instead of something that's actually on our bards makes us even more fun for PvP, allowing us to take something like DFA instead of maybe maneuverability in order to close the gap, while also being able to deal a decent amount of damage. Overall, the spec feels really good with bleeds and poisons combined. I very much like, and I really don't want to overstate it, I very much like the idea that Assassination bleeds and poisons are both on the mastery, as in mastery makes your poisons and bleeds stronger. And I very much like it because I felt it was just a weird concept back so far in Legion that mastery only buffs your poisons. I'm making poisons a lot stronger, but when you have bleeds and poisons, you really want it for your bleeds to do a lot more damage. For the longest time, I thought of Assassination as maybe an Affliction Warlock with daggers, and I very much like that idea, but if you really wanted a bleed-based build from a melee class, you probably should have been looking at Feral to begin with. But in BFA, your mastery is going to be shared between your bleeds and poisons, so staying on the enemy for that burst and sustained damage from poisons is going to be something that you're still going to do in the game, but your bleeds, if you have to peel away from the enemy, as long as you leave a Garrote and Rupture and a poison on them, those damage over time abilities will actually be able to deal good damage over time. So no longer Assassination will have to have a cleave through Fan of Knives and then trying to apply dots, mostly just for the energy regen. Now you'll be using Fan of Knives to apply dots that actually deal good damage, plus they give you a little bit of energy regen. So I feel like cleave and 2 target potential in order to be able to train 2 targets is going to be optimal for Assassination. Even if you want to go for a dot heavy playstyle for duels, for example, I think that's something that's going to be actually viable, because it's kind of cool, because so far in this old footage I've been able to duel some classes and then dot them up with dots and then vanish and then watch them melt and then kind of win the duel because of it. And I always thought it was fun. And yes, it might not be fair at all times for all classes, but for Assassination to be able to go back to doing that effectively, it could do the same thing in Legion, just not nearly as effectively, has been great. Although you shouldn't take a look at damage on beta too heavily. They've been bouncing around things, so you should look at damage relatively. Don't look at the exact numbers to see what's strong, what isn't, but the relative damage of my dots compared to my sustained damage more or less do similar damage to one another. Leaving dots on the enemy while swapping to another is not a bad idea for Assassination. Now, you don't just throw dots just for the energy, you throw them down for the damage, as the damage will actually start to trail, and I very like it. Overall, I think there's a lot of good going on for Assassination. The only, I guess, some place that some people have talked about is Assassination honor talents. It feels like we're losing so many good honor talents, and from 3 that we get to pick, it might not be enough. But I really do like how you can customize a lot of them. One of the things that did nerf recently when it comes to Assassination, and I think this might actually be a playstyle change for PvP, and I really hope it could be, is a talent where you would have Deadly Brew, where Deadly Poison also applies Wound Poison, but with the changes in BFA, Deadly Brew's Deadly Poison healing reduction is not going to be as effective as running Wound Poison. So this, in some cases, if you have, let's say, some healer build, you might have to sacrifice the damage of Deadly Poison to go for Wound Poison, but for your team, you'll offer a strong Mortal Strike effect. So I feel like this is going to make the talents a little bit more interesting. They want to go for flat out damage and maybe some healing reduction. They want to go for heavy healing reduction, and maybe you look for other sources of damage, not damage over time like Deadly Poison. How do you want to approach the situation? And I kind of like that toned down part of the spec. We can finally drop that honor talent and maybe even have some options for something else to take its place. And I also like the idea of, for PvP, to be able to grab a bunch of, let's say, honor talents that add an extra poison effect. So imagine trying to attack the enemy and you have your Deadly Poison. Then you could have Legion Poison on top of that in order to give you a bit of self-heal. Then you can have that healing reduction effect through Deadly Brew. Then, let's say if you're going up against a caster, you will want to add maybe Mind-Numbing Poison. Every time they cast a spell, they also deal damage to themselves. And then Creeping Poison in order to, once they start moving around, they start doing damage to themselves. So imagine putting a bunch of dots, hitting the enemy with Envenom, vanishing. They're trying to find you, like let's say they're a mage and they don't realize what you've done to them poison-wise. They're running around like a chicken without a head, trying to Arcane Explosion you out of stealth, and they just keep melting themselves. So that's in a duel situation, but you can also imagine something like this in an arena situation where, let's say, a healer is just running after his DPS, trying to make sure he has the line of sight of him, trying to heal, but every spell he casts deals damage back to him, so now he has to figure out what to do with the poisons. And of course, it's something that could be easily cleansed. So I'm expecting a lot of people to just start running classes that can easily cleanse poisons, but I think it's going to offer something interesting and more fun for PvP. Abilities like these are just so scarcely used, so it's really cool to be able to combine some kind of effect like this, and in some situations you can even abuse this, and the potential for it is awesome, but there's also availability for outplay. So I find Assassination Rogues to be more or less balanced. I think the only thing that's really going to come down to the balance of the spec is the damage. Even if the damage is low for Assassination, I feel like you still bring a lot of utility, which is a good thing for rogues. As long as rogues bring something good besides damage, then usually you'll find yourself some partners that will want to play with you. So as Assassination, bring in Mortal Strike effect, bring in Blind, Kidneys, bleeds that can be put on multiple targets, or damage over time abilities that can be put on multiple targets that generally deal as much damage as your basic burst and sustain damage, then I feel like the spec will on its own be just fine. Also, the play that you can have with poisons, as well as all the talents to customize your experience for AoE cleave, single target, anti-caster, anti-movement, anti-healing, whatever you want to do, I feel like we'll place Assassination in a really good spot. So hopefully that gave you guys a little bit of an idea where Assassination stand. I know a lot of people are passionate about playing Assassination. It is a great spec. It has been great for as long as Legion has been around, and I just haven't really had the time to properly cover the spec. And right as I wanted to get into some skirmishes, right as I wanted to do some BGs, people started copying the characters over, so I'm glad I was able to find some old footage, and overall, I actually very much enjoyed it. It feels like a very strong spec, and if Assassination, if Subtlety, if any of those specs don't do that great, Assassination will always be that one spec that I think is going to stand the strands of time. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. I like seeing likes because it helps me overblow my ego. If you guys enjoy the videos we do here and want to see more updates on classes like these, go ahead and hit subscribe. But if you're going to hit subscribe, you might as well hit the notification bell as well, because YouTube's subscribe system isn't enough apparently. So you're basically forced to hit the notification bell if you actually want to get any of the updates. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about Assassination, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.